Welcome to Tommy Threads. In this video, it's a slammed holiday brunch. The staff's barely holding it together, and one server's just trying to survive until a nightmare table pushes things too far. Post 1. Our next post is from Brilliant Break 1245. The time I got $400 revenge on an abusive customer. 10 years ago, I worked at a now defunct restaurant in Baltimore Harbor. We were a fairly busy spot, especially during brunch. But unfortunately, most of our front of house staff was incredibly unreliable. It was Sunday, July 5th, holiday weekend, and we were expecting a huge rush. When I showed up, only 3 of our 7 servers came in. Just 1 bartender showed up, and the back of the house staff was only at half strength. So yeah, I was absolutely swamped. What was supposed to be my patio section of 6 tables turned into the patio plus part of the inside. A total of 12 tables. It was chaos, but somehow I was keeping up. Most of my guests could tell we were understaffed, and to their credit, a lot of them were understanding. They saw me hustling non-stop. Now, toward the end of the shift, I get a table of 3 guys who gave me needy vibes immediately. I greeted them and asked them if they wanted to start with drinks. They said they need a minute. About 3 minutes later, I come back. Before I can even ask, they tell me I took too long. Then one of them asks my name and says it was rude that I didn't introduce myself. According to him, if I wanted better tips, I should lead with my name. For context, the owner had a weird policy. Servers weren't supposed to introduce themselves by name unless asked, but I told them my name and moved on. They finally ordered drinks. I ring them in. And not 5 minutes later, they wave me down. Before the drinks even make it to the table, they say they all changed their minds and want completely different drinks. So now I'm sprinting to our only bartender who's already drowning, and I have to tell her to stop mid-pour. She was halfway through making them and rightfully pissed. I update the new drinks, then head back to the food orders. They say they're ready. Apps and entries go in. 5 minutes later, no exaggeration, one of the guys walks up to me at another table to say they changed their minds about the appetizers. I had to excuse myself from my current guests, flag down the chef, and explain the changes. The chef, who, by the way, was also severely understaffed, was livid. So now we've got a pissed bartender, a pissed chef, and one very done server. My service manager calls for hands, so I run their appetizers over. 5 minutes later, their entries hit the table. I check on them, and they immediately complain. They say the entries came out too close to the appetizers, and now they want the meals comped and a round of free drinks for the inconvenience. I told them I'd speak to my manager. I explained everything to her, and she was just as over it as the rest of us. She went over, had a chat with the table, and came back saying, "Comp 1 app, nothing else." At that point, everyone in the building hated this table. I kept my distance, just filled waters and cleared plates when I had to. Toward the end of the meal, one of them asked how long I'd been a server. I told him, and he said I should quit and do something else because I was really bad at it. I just laughed it off, walked away, printed their check, and had my manager run the card. I was not going back to that table. After they left, I picked up the receipt, and yep, they stiffed me. Left a $2 tip and a $130 bill. As I was clearing the table, I lifted the napkin and found something. An Audi key fob. I slipped it into my pocket and figured I'd give it to the host when I had a moment. A couple of hours later, the host gets a call. It's the guy from the table, asking if we found a key. She says nothing had been turned in yet, but she checked with the server. Apparently, the guy made a comment about how I probably stole it because I looked the type. When the host told me that, I kind of snapped inside. I told her I hadn't seen anything. Then I walked straight out the back door of the restaurant and tossed the keys into the Baltimore Harbor. Not my proudest moment, but after everything felt damn satisfying. What you did wasn't about revenge. It was about not choking down 1 more ounce of someone else's entitlement. After hours of being talked down to, second-guessed, and treated like it didn't matter, that key fob became a symbol of every smug, self-important customer who thinks a tip gives them permission to treat someone like hot garbage. Tossing it wasn't some grand act. It was just the first time all shift that you got to decide how something ended. And honestly, fuck them. They deserved it. Post 2. Revenge served cheering for their brother. I was at a college graduation yesterday with my 2 sons to watch our daughter graduate. Behind us in the bleachers were 2 young women talking non-stop and not quietly. I turned around and politely asked if they could be a little quieter so we could hear the speakers. This was before the actual announcements of names and degrees, and one of them replied with something like, "They're just talking now. It's not even graduation, so we can talk as much as we want." They didn't quiet down. If anything, I think they got louder just to annoy me. During their very loud conversation, we learned the first name of their brother, Raekwon. A quick look through the program told us he was the only graduate with that name. We also noted the name of the person set to be announced right before him. My sons and I started texting each other. We planned our little revenge silently, all in real time. One of the women was clearly getting her phone ready to record her brother's big moment, his name being called and his walk across the stage. As soon as they announced the student name before Raekwon, the 3 of us stood up, waved our arms, and screamed at full volume. We didn't stop there. We kept going right through the announcement of Raekwon's name. She replayed the video on her phone, and all you could hear were our shouts. No audio of Raekwon's name, no view of him walking across the stage, just us standing and waving like maniacs. We knew it worked because we heard her behind us swearing and complaining while replaying the ruined footage. Luckily, my wife was sitting up front and recorded our daughter's walk just fine, so there was no way for those two to get revenge on us. And yeah, it was petty, but it felt pretty great. Alright, I don't think you're gonna like what I have to say about this. Okay, I get it was pretty freaking annoying, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of petty revenge stories here that are funny because of them being petty, but this is kind of, it's the moment of their kid, and you just had to walk in and deny them that. I know they were being a-holes to you, but you didn't have to go that far. I'm pretty sure there was a way you could have your revenge without denying someone this once-in-a-lifetime moment. I mean, there aren't a lot of Raekwons who even get to graduate, and now you're gonna take this away from this guy too? Sheesh. Post 3. Next up, a story from I Put Them Somewhere. Got humiliated in front of class. Waited weeks to return the favor. We were never friends, just a kind of classmates who sat near each other, swapped jokes when it suited her, and ignored each other the rest of the time. One day, in class, I said something dumb, not even trying to be funny, just honest. And she saw an opening. Loud voice, smug grin, whole class watching. Oh my god, are you actually that stupid? Laughter. Attention. Teacher didn't even check it. I just laughed it off, but inside, that stung. You know when you replay something later and think, I should have said something back? I didn't. Instead, I waited. A couple of weeks later, we had a group project. She ended up in mine. Not her first choice. She didn't do much, but she thought she could still coast off the work. So when it came time to present, I gave the teacher the version I finished without her part in it. Told him she didn't contribute. Gave proof. She looked confused when she didn't get called up, more confused when she got marked separately, and probably the most confused when she asked if I said anything. And I just said, didn't think you wanted my input. You said I was stupid, remember? I didn't make a scene, didn't raise my voice, but I still heard someone go, darn, from the back of the room. She never spoke to me again. This brings to fore the old saying, what goes around comes around. And that one came back crashing on her face. Nobody likes a freeloader. I always hated those kids in school who coasted off of you when you did all the hard work, and I'm really glad you got your revenge over her. This wasn't even petty revenge. This was deserved. It's a lot better she feels the sting now than later. Believe me, the consequences are gonna be a lot worse. Post 4. The next post is from Moosefish. Going to invite unwanted guests to our wedding after we already said no? Watch this. I wasn't on speaking terms with one of my brothers, and for good reason. He tried to start a fist fight with my now husband, and his wife threatened to shoot me. At the time, we were engaged, and I made it very clear to both my brother and the rest of the family that he was not invited to the wedding. However, my mother took it upon herself to reach out to him, and she talked with him, and he and his wife promised to behave. I reminded her that he was absolutely not invited, that she had no right to do that, and she needed to call him back and make that clear. Her response? But he's your brother, and think of the family. To make matters worse, we were getting a lot of pressure to pay for an open bar, and we don't even drink ourselves, as well as pay for a bigger venue, even though we just wanted a small and intimate wedding. Where was this pressure coming from? Why, none other than my mother, who wanted to invite a bunch of relatives I've never even met and take advantage of that open bar. Now, here comes the fun part. I was at my wit's end with all this family drama, so one Monday evening, a couple months before the wedding, this conversation happened. What are you doing tomorrow? Hanging out with you. Why? Want to get married? Are you serious? Hell yeah. And we did. We eloped, just us and a couple of friends who offered to officiate the wedding that Tuesday evening. We saved thousands upon thousands of dollars, didn't have to deal with any of the drama, and had the small and intimate wedding we actually wanted. Honestly, I wish we had done it this way from the very beginning. However, my mother lost her wits. Well, she freaked out. She posted all over Facebook seeking pity about not being at her daughter's wedding, and how could I do that to her, etc, etc. Funny how she didn't mention any of the above details in her post. She made it all about her wants and the classic woe is me routine. Even funnier, we would have had the wedding if she had just respected our decisions. So no, you don't get to invite unwanted guests, make demands, or expect to go to our wedding. Yeah, it's kind of funny. This wasn't a snub. It was really just basic safety and respect. You had someone who literally tried to fight your husband and a woman who threatened to shoot you. That's not drama. That's stuff you actually take very seriously. The fact that your mom tried to brush it off as he's just your brother shows how little she was listening. You didn't overreact. You made a call to protect your peace. And when no one took you seriously, you and your husband took your day back. No scenes, no screaming, just a simple no thanks to the chaos. You chose love over obligation. And honestly, that's exactly how a wedding should go. Post 5. The next post is from 3 Championship 524. Destroyed my boss's career. A few years back, I got hired as a supervisor for a local government. I was supposed to help manage about 10 employees. Above me was a manager and he was a terrible leader. He would yell at people, make slurs, and hand out impossible tasks or deadlines. On just my 3rd day, he yelled at me in front of everyone, telling me, learn how to do my freaking job. He even made snide remarks to other employees about how he planned to terminate me while I was still on probation. He also demanded I keep communication log with every task he assigned me and update it as I completed them. This first weekend, he chewed me out for not emailing him any questions by the end of the week. He said I was required to send him 3 questions every week until my probation ended. So the next week, I did exactly that. I emailed him 3 questions. His reply? He told me to look up the answers myself. It was obvious. He was out to get me. He'd assign me task A, then pile on task B and C, and then ask me why task A wasn't finished yet. I found out later that he had done the same thing to the previous supervisor until he collected enough dirt to get him fired. That's when I decided it was war. I started keeping a detailed log of every policy violation, every inappropriate comment, and every broken rule I witnessed. I documented who was present each time. I also started talking to the other supervisors and employees from other departments, quietly gathering support. By day 28 of working here, I was ready to quit. I even kept a resignation letter in my car, but having it gave me the mental power to push through. On day 28, I filed a formal complaint with HR. At the same time, I convinced the other supervisor to file one too. Then a few more employees stepped up and eventually a group complaint was filed. HR launched an investigation. The manager was put on administrative leave, and the investigation found that, surprise, he did violate multiple policies and created a hostile work environment. He ended up resigning. Since then, he's been burning bridges at every job he's had, 3 so far. He went from managing 15 employees and having a great pension while making $95,000 a year to working as a low-level laborer, making about $25 an hour at some hole-in-the-wall facility. To be fair, he made his own problems. I just helped HR see it. Well, you put it very good in the end of it. He really did make his own problems. If he left this burning every bridge of every company he's been to after, it just shows what a terrible character he's got. There is no fate for this person that's going to end up well. And honestly, none of this was your fault, and you didn't even have to be the guy who did this to him. You were just the guy who took the initiative first. Some point in the future, if it wasn't you, it was going to be someone else. This man was stitching his own destruction from the ground up since the very first day he started doing work, and it was just bound to happen. Post 6. The next story is from Pixel Hunter Diana 416. He robbed an old man. We delivered him straight to the cops. There's an old man called Robert in my village who's been a widower for years. He lives alone in a small farm off the main road with chickens, a few goats, a horse, a garden, that kind of peaceful life. He's one of those people everyone calls a saint. Never raises his voice, always asks biscuits for the kids, and always helps when someone needs something. When I was a kid, I used to spend afternoons at his place with my friends, feeding the animals, running around the trees, and drinking juice from those old school glass bottles. One of my friends was David, a kid who came from a rougher background, but was always welcome at the farm, just like the rest of us. Now, we are all adults, and David didn't turn out great. He's known for petty crimes, always looking for a quick score. He was kicked out of his parents' house more than once, and most people had already cut ties with him, but not Robert. One night, a few days ago, David knocked on Robert's door asking for a place to crash. It was cold, and he said he had nowhere else to go. Robert, as always, let him in. He gave him a warm bed for the night. The next morning, he went to the local market to buy cereal and something nice to make breakfast for David. But when he came back, he found David rummaging through a drawer where he kept some savings. Even after being asked what he had put in his pocket, David said no and took off. That broke something in me. Me and another friend who also grew up going to that farm tracked him down and pretended we didn't know anything. I offered him a ride and he said yes, as we usually do here, but instead of driving him to the center, we drove him straight to the police station. I explained everything to the cops and they arrested him because he confessed while waiting for Robert to show up. He's now in custody awaiting trial. I hope justice is served. Robert cried in front of us, not because of the betrayal, but because, in his words, "I thought y'all had forgotten me." That broke my heart so badly. We had stopped visiting as we grew up, just waving instead of stopping by. That made me realize how much of a piece of crap I am too. So now I'm visiting him at least once a month. He may have been robbed that day, but he also got a reminder. Not all of us turned out like David. Some of us remember who raised us and who helped keep us off the streets and away from temptation when we were kids. I protect what matters, always. I'm not gonna lie when I say I teared up a bit. There's a lot of old people in my life who keep on reminding me that they do wish I was more, present in their lives. And hearing those words, I thought you had all forgotten about me really, it really touched me deeply. I guess, I hope that one day, David reflects on his actions and does his best to make up for it. I also hope that he's punished severely enough for the crimes that he's done. If Robert is the way that you say he is, then he didn't deserve any of this. There isn't a lot of things worse than taking complete advantage of somebody who's given you their heart. And I can't think of anything else to say. I'll be praying for Robert. I truly wish him well. And thanks for being around him and making sure he knows you care. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, you'll love this one here. I hope to see you there, and I'm pretty sure I will. Ciao!